head north to Queensland. Last night I brought you the story of cancer patient Gary Ralph. Well, he'll now be permitted to quarantine, we're told, in his Brisbane home tonight instead of a hotel after he travelled from Sydney back home to Queensland after urgent brain surgery. The exemption was granted by Queensland Chief Health Officer today. It all finally came through after days and days and days of attempted intervention and begging from Gary's family, politicians and the media here. Queensland Shadow Health Minister Ros Bates.
Gary's treatment is absolutely heartless. Anastasia Palaszczuk is just cold, callous and cruel, and she's showing absolutely no compassion. And as a nurse, as you said earlier, I am just appalled at the treatment of this family.
You know, Friday is feedback from you on my Facebook page, and I wanted to actually go to these responses from you, and boy, were you cranky. Owen French wrote that it's time to abolish state governments. He says we're over-governed. Kathy Hawkins believes this is so cruel, so wrong, so heartless and so political. Susie Boscarado says it's not about fixing the world, it's applying common sense and having some compassion. Let's bring in my good friend, Sky News contributor and podcast host, Jane Marwick from Perth. It's terrific that Gary has finally got an exemption, Jane. It should not have come to this. But we also know a second family with someone they love battling cancer is faced with this same treatment. It's extraordinary, these hotel quarantine arrangements for people in our own country. And this is Jeannette Young. This is 6 times this individual. He's got terminal cancer, has been knocked back for a similar exemption to Gary. It's heartless, Jane.
It is. It's incredible. And let's go back and look. And by the way, may I congratulate you on that press conference with Daniel Andrews. Keep going. Keep asking because you've got the courage of your convictions. So it's just been extraordinary what you have uncovered, and we need to know about that 6 minutes. I just had to put it in there because I know that everyone watching feels exactly the same way. But yes, it is heartless, and let's just stop and have a think about what closed borders were about. They're about saving lives. They're about, if we're talking about a border between Queensland and New South Wales, we're talking about saving Queenslanders' lives. And yet here we are dealing with incredibly sick people, some unable to speak or only able to eat soft foods, and they're being treated in this way. So is the so-called cure much worse than the disease? Pardon that horrible analogy. Are we using a sledgehammer to crack a nut? We can all see the politics from a mile away, and that these people have to go to the media at a time, let's not forget how uncomfortable it is to tell your story. It's a private story when you're so gravely ill, and yet they're all having to go to the media to get their stories out so that people like you and other outlets can get Jeannette Young to listen to them, Peter.
Well, it's just, again, a shame that it's Jeannette Young making the decision, not the elected Premier.
Yep.
I mean, this is the problem, and I hope this is where, you know, Queenslanders focus their mind as they go to the polls at the end of the month. It's interesting too, I saw the West Australian budget was handed down. Now, all the other states are not bringing down their budgets. We know Queensland will not have a budget this side of the election. Victoria, we haven't even set a date for a budget down here at a state level. I don't think any of them are going to be in the black, but surprise, surprise, Western Australia is. You're in the black to the tune of $1.2 billion.
Yes, but where our debt is increasing. And what was so interesting was when this government were in opposition, they talked about Colin Barnett's debt monster when it was a debt of about $34.3 billion. Now we're up to, I think, $42.9 billion by 2023, Peter. But coming into the coffers, we've got increased iron ore royalties and, of course, that deal that was done with the Commonwealth Government. So GST revenues are up. We're going to an election in March. We've still got a hard border, and hence this good news story to tell, if you like. And I wasn't here with you last week, but when our Premier said that we wouldn't be opening borders between the Territory and South Australia because there is no benefit, he said. This isn't about the health advice anymore. All we do is lose jobs that were open to when we open to those jurisdictions. So let's see all of this, Peter, for what it is.
And look, just a tribute to Matthias Cormann. I had him on my show this week. I was aware there was likely to be the OECD announcement the next day, but wasn't something I could speak publicly about. Of course, there was the intention now. He will be nominated as Australia's representative in the race for the top job. 13 years in the Parliament, Australia's longest-serving finance minister. He's a rare individual who goes at a time of his own choosing, but of course he goes with just, I think, genuine respect from not just both sides of politics, but the broader business community and I think the Australian public, Jane.
Absolutely, he does. A great loss to the Parliament. I've thanked Matthias Cormann on another occasion for saving that little college that we all fought so hard for in Western Australia, Moora Residential College. The state government cut the funding. Matthias Cormann came in with federal government funding to save a school that services kids from remote and regional Western Australia. He might have that thick accent, Peter, but he is a West Australian through and through and a terrific Australian. I hope he gets the top job.
I'm sorry it's abbreviated tonight, Jane, but there was so much coming out of all those extra submissions today in the press conference.
Keep going,
Gotta leave it there.
keep going.
Thank you, my love.
See you.
Thank you, my love. All right.